everybody. Welcome to the Learning from Leaders webinar series, hosted by the Yale Center for Customer Insights, which is a group that lives at the Yale School of Management. We like to bring academics and industry together. So today our speakers for you are actually both from the Yale School of Management. We have award-winning author and senior lecturer Zoe Chance is going to be sharing insights from her new book, and she will be interviewed by Yale School of Management Professor of Marketing, Jiwoong Shin. For just some general housekeeping, we will ask that you use the Q&A function to share any questions that you have. We will have a 15-minute session at the end where we can get to the audience questions. And Zoe always encourages us. I think this is great. Please channel your multitasking energy into the session instead of out of the session by using the chat to interact with your fellow attendees and any feedback that you have on the topics that are going on as well. So I will then pass it over to Jiwoong.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. My name is Jiwoong Shin. I'm in really great pleasure and the honor to interview one of my beloved colleague, Zoe Chance. So Joy, and we know each other more than almost 20 years, right? And,
oh my God, really?
Yes, from the day when we are both PhD students at MIT and Harvard, where you earned your doctorate. And then we have been together at Yale more than 10 years. And I know you are amazing teachers, and your class is one of the most popular at Yale School of Management. And you are the top-notch researcher with so many influential work in behavioral science. And more importantly, not many people may know, you are such an incredibly kind and generous human being. So it's my pleasure to interview and have today's discussion. And I want to know so much about you. So excited to get to know you more. So I just want to ask you something about you, because in so many different ways, you are so talented, right? So talented. So how you become so talented? So, and who are you? So what was your life like growing up to be such an influential, such a multi-talented person? So can you tell us about your life and the background?
You are so kind, Jiwoong, and I absolutely adore you, and thank you for doing this conversation with me. Thank you for your kind words, and my wish for everyone on this call with us is for all of us to be able to figure out what it is that we love doing and what we shine when we do, and to be able to craft our work around that. So I love the work that we do. I love my job. It's not exactly the job that I was hired to do when I came to Yale, but I've been able to shift it toward that, to bring together all of these different elements of my life and my work and my experience to really focus on this class that I teach called Mastering Influence and Persuasion, which is the foundation for the book that I wrote, Influence is Your Superpower. I've been really obsessed with the topic of interpersonal influence because I've been so uninfluential, not because I was so influential or charismatic or talented or anything. When I was a kid, it just looked like being shy, not understanding how to make friends, being a nerd, as many of us who work in academia are. The friend part didn't come easily. For example, my grammar was too adult-like when I was a kid, and I remember practicing really hard to talk like a kid, and I would listen to my classmates who said went instead of said, and reminding myself, you can't say he said and she said, you have to say he went and she went. This idea of trying to fit in, but in this very cerebral way, didn't really go well. I had a theory that my voice was the same frequency as the ambient sound of the universe, and that's why other kids talked over me. But really, it was just that I was quiet. But I wanted to understand, how do people connect with each other? So I started doing theater, and then skills that I learned in theater, which really does teach you to connect with people and to be heard, I put to use in sales, very unglamorous jobs like door-to-door marketing and telemarketing, and then eventually working in marketing. I was a brand manager for Barbie. I was actually a real world person working in industry before coming to academia. But in marketing too, I was frustrated at being not influential enough, because while the business that I was working on was thriving, we were selling this fairies and mermaids segment to small girls, ages 3 to 5, maybe some of your daughters those of you who are on the call. But I really struggled with trying to influence my colleagues, and especially my bosses and their bosses. And it took many years of research into behavioral science to understand some of the reasons that I wasn't so effective. And I've wanted to help other people not go through such a long and painful process as I did to understand the psychology of influence, so we can be more connected and so we can be more effective.
Wow, that's a kind of surprising, that given that I just know after you enter the PhD program, I always thought you are just born naturally with this kind of charisma and charm. But what I heard is that you are not born with the charisma or charm that you have now. So then you are saying that you are not influential and in that sense, this kind of contradict my idea of what wrong idea. I thought that this kind of influence is a character for only very few chosen people. So it's not for me. I never can get it. But by hearing what you just said, it sounds like we all, normal people like me, can even improve my influence or charisma. That's what you are saying. Is that correct?
Okay, I don't think you can say normal people like you, because you're one of the most charming people that I know. But and thank you. And this idea of charisma or charm is related to what I'm trying to teach in this broad endeavor to help empower smart, kind people to be more influential. What I see is that we're really on this path of personal development. So I teach a lot of tools and strategies, science, tactics that we practice as we're trying to become more influential, but it's really this self-development of understanding ourselves better. We take social risks, we step out of our comfort zone in these various challenges that I teach in my class, write about in the book. And what we're ultimately striving for is to become the kind of person that other people want to say yes to. Mm-hmm. So that when you approach somebody like you with me, right? If you come into my office and you just say like, Zoe, I have a great idea, I want to say yes to it because of the whole way that you are in your life and the way that you are with me. So you're somebody that I just want to say yes to. And I see you having this effect on other people, even though you're calling yourself, a normal person. One thing about this that's interesting for everybody on the call is that people, for most of us, I can't say this is true for all of us, but for most people, so it's probably for you, people like you more than you think. And there's this interesting research by Erica Boothby and some of her colleagues looking at what they call the liking gap. And when two strangers meet each other, and then researchers ask them after they have a conversation, how much did you like that other person? And how much do you think that they liked you? We think that we liked the other person about 12% more than we think that they liked us. So we believe, yeah, I really like them. I kind of don't know if they like me. But we are actually, almost all of us, more charming than we think that they are. And that's what you hear when Jiwoong is talking like that. Like, this is just the state of the human condition. But you also asked, are there things that we can do? Absolutely. There are many, many things that we can do to become more charismatic, specifically, as you mentioned, and to become more of someone that other people want to say yes to, regardless of the tools that we're using.
But that's very encouraging, and you're always kind. So then I just want to a little bit ask you more about, because you say the influence, you want to make people say yes. So what's your philosophy about influence? What does it mean? Because, in marketing, we always say that we kind of influence is a very important part of our marketing communications. Marketing communication is kind of let our brand or product known people to our customer, and then convince them, persuade them why they need to choose our brand over competitions. So I want to hear about your philosophy about influence. When you said the influence, do you really talk about this communication part, or let your idea get through or come across to other people, or ultimately their choice? What's your philosophy about that?
First, just broadly defining influence and persuasion and manipulation, I think, can be helpful, because how we define these things influences what we think is appropriate and what we're willing to do. Influence, as I see it, is just very generally, broadly, succinctly, anything that changes somebody's thinking or behavior. And that includes a subset, which is persuasion. And that's when we influence people through communication and through words. And then there's also another piece, which is manipulation, which could happen through, I guess that's through persuasion as well, where we have a secret, hidden, selfish agenda to the thing that we're trying to influence someone to do. A lot of people think that marketing, and then even especially sales, are sort of, they're manipulative and shameful, or maybe even almost dirty kinds of things to do, because they think of marketing as being manipulative. And you talked to Jiwoong about the idea of making someone say yes. And it's a subtle distinction. But first of all, I don't believe we can make people say yes. And I believe marketing and sales have a bad rap because a lot of people are doing it really badly. Like, I got a cold email from somebody, this is sales, but I got a cold email from somebody yesterday who was connected with me on LinkedIn, who says, hey, I was doing some research on companies and I saw that your Yale University website needs some work. Here's a link to sign up for my Calendly appointment so that I'll give you a consultation to improve Yale University's website, right? I have nothing to do with Yale University's website. This dude is emailing me out of nowhere. He's pitch slapping me. Of course, I'm not going to sign up for his Calendly link. And he gives sales and marketing a bad rap. So I want to shift the paradigm of influence from what many of us think of as being typically manipulative, greedy, off-putting, because we focus on transactions and what can I get from someone? They're just a means or an obstacle to me getting what I want, to how can I relate to this person to share an opportunity for a collaboration that could potentially work out even better in the long run. So whether I'm talking about leadership or marketing or sales, and whether I'm talking about work or personal, family, social relationships, if I'm striving to become someone or to have a product or service that people want to say yes to, it doesn't mean that they have to say yes. And it doesn't mean that they have to say yes now. I'm just looking to cultivate an offering or a persona that's appealing, right? And then we figure out, do we want to collaborate? But this, like you and I, Jiwoong, have a background in behavioral economics research. And for people on the call, Jiwoong and I both worked with Dan Ariely at MIT. And this behavioral economics ethos is, I don't like the term, but they use the frame of libertarian paternalism. And I guess I don't like it because I'm not libertarian. But the idea is that we give freedom of choice while nudging people in the direction that we're interested in, hopefully that we think is helpful for them. We're not manipulating them and we're not trying to force them into anything. So there's freedom of choice, and there's also a direction of intentional influence. And the reality is that we're all influencing each other all the time. whether you think you are, whether you're trying to, we all are influencing each other all the time.
I see. I really like your that philosophy, but I just so you are just said that so in a behavioral science we actually study, we do have a lot of studies that how to nudge people and so it eventually influence their choice in a way that we wish that happens. But sometimes so what I want my customer or my partner choose something is not necessarily the customer or my partner, their best interest. In that kind of a case, so is that kind of similar to manipulating, that I am taking advantage of their behaviors, kind of psychological mistakes? So we are taking advantage, and in that sense, it sounds like a little bit manipulating.
I do find that manipulative. Yeah, right. If you're trying to influence someone to do something that's not in their best interest. Yes.
How would you?
Yeah, you have this hidden selfish agenda. Right. Then yeah, I do think that this is manipulative. And it is also not generally in our best interest to try to be influencing people to do things that are against their best interest, because they end up with remorse, whether it's a transaction like a sale, a purchase, or some decision or commitment that they've made. If you think about, if you have, most of us on the call have had the situation of having an employee working for us who doesn't actually enjoy doing the job or doesn't actually enjoy working for us. This is absolutely miserable for everybody, right? Mm-hmm. So you want to help people who are working for you or in your organization. You want to help them be engaged, and you want to help them enjoy their work so that they're doing good work and they're doing plenty of it. And, you know, they go the extra mile when there's the opportunity, and they help other people enjoy their work and be engaged in this. But it's not that we want to get every single person to work for us. It's not that we want to get every single person to buy our product. And actually, Jiwoong, this brings up one of the topics that you and I were talking about this morning, which is this difference between, are you trying to change people's minds or are you trying to influence their behavior?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. A lot of people who come to my classes and workshops on influence have this goal of learning how to change people's minds, especially changing the minds of people who disagree with them. Mm. First of all, it's rarely going to happen. If it's an issue that you care about and they care about, and there's a fundamental disagreement, it's very rare that you can convert someone. If you think about something as deeply important to most of us as our religion or lack of religion, it doesn't matter what words somebody uses or what strategy they use to communicate how great their different religion is. They're almost certainly not going to convert you to it. Right. But a lot of what we're doing is banging our heads against the wall, trying to convert people who fundamentally are never going to be converted. We also don't realize how long it's going to take, that when conversion happens, it takes not just one conversation, but many conversations in a relationship or a series of relationships. And what we're doing when we focus on this kind of influence is we're leaving the low-hanging fruit rotting on the ground, where we could have focused on trying to influence their behavior instead of just trying to change people's minds. And when I talk about influencing people's behavior without changing their minds, that means that we're focusing on people who are already interested or people who are already open-minded. And we underestimate how much effort it takes to have those people take action and to close this intention behavior gap.
Okay, that's very helpful. So your book, this book, so I hope people can see it. So this book is not about changing the people's mind, but it's more about influencing their behavior. And you are not intended to manipulate people who do not like your product, who do not have any fit, just buy it. and they regret, and they hate you in the long run. So you are more. So I agree with that, because
I do also write in this book. I share some tips for communicating with people who disagree with you. What are some kinds of conversations that you could have to nudge one another toward open-mindedness? And just spoiler alert, being influential requires being influenceable. So if you want them to be open-minded, it requires you being open-minded also. But this is not the low-hanging fruit. These are the high branches. The low-hanging fruit is helping motivate other people to take action.
Yeah. So because I just want to a lot of questions but where to start? Because so before I just ask the next question, because I just want to mention something that, so when I'm teaching their marketing, a lot of business people ask me, how can I satisfy every customer? Then I said that, get real. You cannot satisfy every single person who are breathing. If you think you can, you are dreaming, right? Yeah. So in a sense, you are saying that we should not really fool people around to buy something and manipulate. We just find the right people who can benefit from us. Then you influence them to take action easily. When you think you can that action benefit, that it's a kind of win-win situation. Is that correct? Is that how interpret you or what you say?
When we're thinking of where do we invest our energy and what should we prioritize? Yes, absolutely. We can leverage our investment of time and energy, and usually money, if we're focusing on people who are already open-minded or people who are already interested. And we shouldn't underestimate their likelihood of getting distracted and not following through with the thing that they've told us that they'll do. Like an example of a study, a situation that shows the huge intention behavior gap is maybe one that people on the call can relate to. If you've ever made a New Year's resolution, then you know the intention behavior gap. But the biggest ever public health campaign in the United States was in the 1990s. And this was the 5 a Day campaign, where the USDA, in a public-private partnership, was spending $50 million a year on the message that we should be eating 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day to prevent cancer and be healthy. In 1991, only 8% of people knew that we should be eating so many fruits and vegetables. And then over the next 4 years, that number quadrupled to 32% awareness. And this was touted as a massive success and replicated in 29 other countries around the world. But later, when researchers came back and looked at the data to say, okay, how many people actually were eating that much fruits and vegetables in year 1 versus in year 5? And they found it was 11% in year 1 and it was 11% in year 5. There was absolutely no change. And then during the rest of the decade, then that amount actually declined, because there's so many obstacles and it's so difficult. If you're not someone who is used to buying and preparing vegetables, that it's a big lift. In fact, people in the United States throw away 30% of the vegetables that they buy. They just go rotten in their refrigerator. So it didn't matter to have the intention of, oh yeah, sure, I need to eat some more vegetables. It was the obstacles to the behavior of eating vegetables that needed to be focused on.
Oh, that's a wonderful story. So in a sense, they spent billions of dollars. So I thought it's a
250 million, a quarter of a billion.
Yeah, yes. Kind of tons of money. I thought many people may think it's a good success because the awareness level increased, right? However, while you are saying that it doesn't translate into the actual choice or behavior.
Right. So much marketing money is wasted on awareness. I'm not saying awareness isn't important. I'm saying it is in many cases less important than we think.
Right. That's interesting. So I really like this. And also your book must have tons of kind of easy way we can implement how we can actually influence other people's behavior. That's this book. is all about. Am I right?
Right. And when you talk about easy ways, something that springs to mind is just a metric, marketing metric, that if you're working in marketing and you're on the call and you're not familiar with the customer effort score, consider checking this out. And if you get really interested in it, there's a whole book called The Effortless Experience, written by the market research firm who had developed the customer effort score and done a lot of the research supporting it. This one simple metric is more predictive of customer loyalty and customer spending in many cases than customer satisfaction is and net promoter score. And for those of you not familiar with it, net promoter score is essentially word of mouth. So it, of course, how much people like something should be predicting how much they buy of it and how long they're going to continue. But even more predictive is this one simple question that boils down to: how much effort did that take? How much effort did it take for you to buy the thing? How much effort did it take for you to find the information you were looking for? How much effort did it take for you to get your issue resolved? This one metric accounts for 30%. It's 30% of the profitability compared. No, I'm getting the numbers mixed up. Let me come back to super important. Yeah, maybe you can find this in the book.
I know. When I read that part in your book, I was so impressed, because this is kind of consistent in marketing. We always say the customer journey. So our job is to make a customer journey as easy as possible, right? So therefore, our job.
This is the most important thing,
right?
Yeah.
Find our customers' pain point from their very beginning to ending their customer journey, then address their pain point to make their journey smooth, as easy as possible. This is easy. Kind of your idea, right?
And the important thing is that it's not that you use this metric, although if you're in marketing, you can and you should, but that all of us take to heart the message that the most important thing that we can do to influence somebody in any context is make it as easy as possible. Some of the outcomes that customer effort score translates to are differences between people who do and don't spread negative word of mouth and people who do and don't intend to repurchase. So in a study of almost 100,000 customers, these researchers found that if you had a low effort experience, there was a 95% chance that you intended to repurchase the thing again, regardless of how much you actually liked it.
Right.
And that if you had a high effort experience, there was an 83% chance that you were going to spread negative word of mouth, regardless of whether you actually were happy with the outcome or not. People who have difficult experiences complain about it. And a lot of us on this call, because many of us have backgrounds in marketing, we know that marketing is less effective than word of mouth. All the money that we spend on advertising and communications is less powerful than somebody having a friend or a family member tell them to do or not do this thing. And also that negative word of mouth is far more impactful than positive word of mouth. So negative word of mouth is a killer.
Right.
And the biggest driver of negative word of mouth is just effort.
Yeah, I had experience. Right.
And so as an example of something related to efforts, what do you do with this besides just use this effort score? And like Jiwoong is saying, how do we take friction out of the process of the whole customer journey? I had an exec in my class at Yale a couple of years ago. His name is Connor, and he runs a seminar company in Dublin, Ireland. The way their business model works, profitability comes from return participants. So the number one thing that they need to do is take as much friction out as possible from the conversion of somebody comes to one seminar, and then how do you get them to come back to the next seminar? And so I was talking about this importance of ease, and they said, okay, we're going to go really low tech and simple. We're just going to print out a flyer and put it in everybody's chair when they come to each seminar. And there's just a box for them to check for which of the following future seminars do you want to come back to? And we have your payment information. We'll follow up with you to make it as easy as possible. This one simple intervention improved profitability for their whole company by 11%. They didn't need to ask this question of customer effort score. They just said, what's the key behavior and how do we facilitate that? And what we're talking about here is you're helping people do the things that they want to do, right? They're not trying to persuade people who don't want to come back, but there are plenty of people who want to come back who aren't coming back because all kinds of things like life get in the way.
So this is also what I really like about your book is because your book is based on a lot of this latest kind of finding from behavior science, right? So you just pull a lot of this behavior science findings and research to make your point about how to influence people. So speaking of this kind of behavior science in the real world, so I know that you have some experience with the YCCI, Yale Center of Customer Insight, and you work with YCCI and our long-term affiliate partner, Google. And then you implement this behavior science and help them. Can you tell us about this collaboration, how this came to be, and how was your experience, and what did you do, and what was the experience, and so on?
Sure. I am a huge fan of YCCI, and I believe this is one of the most special things that we have at Yale School of Management. It's very rare, and students who are here don't realize that we don't have these kinds of industry academic partnerships at almost any other school, or maybe even any other school. And I'll just share one example of one of these relationships that has been so generative and so fruitful and so helpful for everybody has been the relationship that we have with the food team at Google. And this has been going on now for about a decade. And I was instrumental in the formation of it and participating heavily at the beginning. And I've since then stepped out, along with the main partner at Google has stepped out to do other things, but it's been so good for everybody that it's continued. And now more people from Google and more people from Yale are continuing with this research, where what we do in a lot of our YCCI projects is we bring together faculty, ideas, support, and research acumen with student experience, ideas, and wanting to learn and work really hard with industry questions, problems, stumbling blocks that have some potential for not just solving this one issue, but some kind of broadly interesting outcome. And some of these lead to publications in industry publications, academic publications. So with the Google food team, one of the main things we've been doing is saying, how can we help people make mindlessly healthier or mindlessly more sustainable choices? And a really, really simple study that we did relates to this conversation around ease. And ease is just one element of the many, many things that we can focus on to be more influential. But this, again, is an idea of how do you apply it? So employees at Google call themselves Googlers. New employees get called Nooglers. And Nooglers have complained about the Noogler 15, which is the apocryphal 15 pounds that you gain the first year that you're working at Google, because there's free food available everywhere. And you can't take away the snacks and desserts that people enjoy, because then you will have rebellion and mayhem. But you can nudge them to be more easily able to make healthy choices or less easily able to make unhealthy choices, or the same thing for sustainability. So in one of our simplest studies, we just sent some students as market research spies into break rooms. And in one of these break rooms, we just had them be tracking, all right, there are two different stations where people can get a drink. And then there's one area where people can get snacks. The drink stations had one a little closer, one a little further. It's all in the same room. And we were just saying, does it matter to have it be a little bit easier because you're just closer in the same room? And so the students acting like spies are pretending to text, and they're just noticing who is taking a snack and which drink station did they go to. And they found that people going to the closer drink station to the snack area were 50% more likely to take a snack than people going to the farther drink station. Okay, so then what do you do with that? Well, you definitely want to separate the drinks from the snacks. And so we had someone from the architecture firm who was in the room when I was presenting this research, who immediately called back to headquarters and said, hey, listen, we need to redesign employee break rooms, not just at Google, but for our other clients too, so that we're not putting the drinks and snacks together. It's still so easy to get a snack, right? Like it's still in the same room. You're just not encouraging people to mindlessly grab one because it's sitting there in their face. And then additionally, people hear about this study and then change things. Some people have changed where the food goes in their house that they find tempting. So some of you know Shane Frederick, who's in our department as well. And Shane and I were married when I was doing this research. And in our house, we had cookies in the cupboard that, you know, and some chips and stuff, junk, that we would open up the cupboard, you see it right there in your face, and you just mindlessly grab it. We put it in an opaque container in the cupboard so that you can't see the cookies. And literally they started to mold before we were eating them. Another one of the students on the team was drinking too much beer, and he would open up the fridge and there's the beer there. And so he just put his beer in the basement. It's still there. You can still go get it, but he curbed his mindless drinking just like we did with mindless eating.
I'm going to move my beers from the basement today, right after this one. So this is kind of fantastic. So it's, in a sense, it's like a really true kind of exemplary a collaboration between the industry and academia, right?
Yeah. And what I didn't mention is that out of this long-term project, first of all, we had students who, multiple students got jobs at Google. All of them got to have a Google consulting project on their resume, which is a wonderful benefit. We loved working with the team at Google and obviously still do. And we've had a number of publications come out of this. So just in the things that I was working on, we had an academic publication come out that's helpful for any academic publishing their research. We had another article come out in Harvard Business Review, and we co-authored these. So Yale and Google partners. And then we also had a textbook and a marketing handbook come out so that other students are reading about these cases and then more easily able to apply these findings.
Win-win-win situation. That's wonderful to hear.
Yeah. And then even the main person on the Google side who was running the project when I was on the Yale side became a good friend of mine, and we went on vacation together. So that's the idea of, you can have a transactional kind of influence situation where if you were just looking to answer one question or do, you know, get one, I guess we could have been selfishly motivated on this project, like some of us trying to get consulting money or trying to get publications or trying to get whatever benefits you can have through a partnership with some fancy organization. But we tried to make this be a healthy working relationship that has lasted, providing benefits to so many people. And for all of you who are on the call, who are in organizations that already partner with YCCI, this is my plea to you. One of the keys that made this work so well and continues to between Yale and Google is that there was an agreement that we would be able to publish the results, whether they came out favorably or not. And it could have been that we stripped Google's name off of it. We didn't need to say, this is the company at which, some unfortunate or unpleasant kind of findings were revealed. But for academics to be able to publish the research is critically important for us to be able to invest. And then also just inviting you, there is this additional possibility that if you would like to be collaborating and co-authoring some of these projects with us, we're absolutely open to those conversations, and the possibility is out there. So ask us.
Thank you for saying this. I also as involved in several YCCI project with the industry, many companies. I always have a great experience. Actually, I feel like I provide them something. Then also from the project, I could write several papers. It's always win-win situations.
Yeah, we learned so much from it.
Yes, sure. I also learned. Okay, so before I open the floor for taking questions, I have one very selfish personal question to you before you go, because you are the expert. So if someone like me, who are kind of usually shy, not charismatic at all, so I want to be more influential. Look, it's so also I have to give a lot of a public talk, but I feel very uncomfortable. You have no idea how uncomfortable right now, how nervous I am right now doing this one. So is there anything you can give your advice? How can I improve my influence or charisma, or what's a good way to get even started? So can you give me the advice?
Okay, so you're asking about charisma, and you're also asking where to start in the influence path. Yeah. And these are two separate things. But people on the call who haven't spent as much time with Jiwoong as I have, or you haven't had his class, he's one of the very most popular professors with most popular classes. And he's so funny and charming and self-effacing and acts like somebody who maybe doesn't know what he's doing, and he totally always knows what he's doing. So he has this charm of a very specific variety. For you, for speaking and everything, Jiwoong, don't do anything differently. It goes great. You have your own Jiwoong thing. Nobody else can do the Jiwoong thing. And that's true for everybody on the call too. When you think of charismatic individuals and public speakers who do really well, there are many different varieties, right? So you can have people who are loud and very dramatic, and people who are quiet and thoughtful. And you even may know some people who stand up and they read from notes. And a lot of us think, oh, we couldn't possibly do that because we needed to memorize the thing. No, actually, people really want to hear what it is that you have to say. And the bar is very low for acting ability. But what all of these people have in common is really focusing their attention on their listeners. And so we're doing that effectively in many different ways. And you can do that when you're telling stories that are humorous, right? So you're comedically talented. So like Shane, who we mentioned, also very comedically talented in a really different way. And when you have people laughing, they feel like they're engaged. When you're asking people questions, they feel like they're engaged. Ultimately, the idea of charisma boils down to how much attention do I feel this person is paying to me. Self-consciousness is anti-charisma. So we can also think of stripping away some of the cues to self-consciousness, including diminishing language or fidgeting, things like that. But I want to, before we get to broad questions for a second, because we focused a lot on things like ease, and in this book and in my teaching, maybe even the bulk of what I talk about and help people with is persuasion and conversations and this kind of one-to-one influence that we can have with people. And I want to share with everyone listening on the call an invitation to do the challenge that I start with my MBA students in this class, which is to say no. It's 24 hours of saying no to everyone who asks you for something, whether it's big or small, personal, professional, whether you want to or you didn't. It's saying no so that you can learn, first of all, almost all of us are people pleasers, and almost all of us who know that we're people pleasers are actually even more people pleasers than we realized. So you get to take in the really scary prospect of how much you have just been treating your time like a public good. Like everyone has equal access to it, and you just look on your calendar and see if you can fit them in. The second piece is that as you're saying no, you see how it feels, you see how other people react. They don't kill you, you don't die. You thought that they were counting on you saying yes, but they were just hoping that you would say yes. And if you say no, they'll ask some other person, or they'll come and they'll check back later. You can practice saying no warmly, so it goes even better. And then this piece that's really magical and unexpected. This is the real reason to practice the no challenge, if it feels like something that could be helpful, is that as you become more comfortable saying no, you become more comfortable with the idea of other people saying no. So that means it's easier for you to ask. And when you ask, you don't put pressure on them. So you don't give this needy impression that makes people want to say no and they feel resistant. Like if you pressure people, their inner 2-year-old is like, you're not the boss of me. You don't tell me what to do. When you need them to say yes, they want to say no. But when you make it comfortable to say no, if this isn't the right thing for them, then they're more inclined to say yes. So it's this weird, unexpected cycle of you saying no, then indirectly but profoundly leads to other people saying yes.
That's interesting. So I'm going to start this practice, but that means don't ever ask me anything, because how can I possibly say no to you? So
you couldn't say no to me.
Okay, so then it's time. I think it's a good time to open the floor to take some questions from the audience.
Yeah.
Yes, I think we have a couple questions, Zoe, in the Q&A, if you want to take a look.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for everyone asking questions here, and for everyone who's joining us. And Jim, you're asking about an upcoming Coursera course. Thank you for that. I am really, really excited about this course, which is called How to Ask for Anything. And so this is strictly focused on the conversation and persuasion and communication part of my work. And saying no will be part of it. Doing rejection challenges will be part of it, and asking in different ways and listening in specific ways that can be helpful. And also as part of this, we'll even practice writing and publishing opinion pieces and putting your voice out into the public sphere. This is still in development, so I will be shooting it over the summer, and then it will be released at some point in the fall. The course is going to be available for free to anyone in the world. It will be translated into at least 8 different languages. The book, by the way, is being translated into at least 28 different languages. So if you know people that you want to share it with in other parts of the world, please do. The Coursera course it's related material, but it's a different way of practicing the kinds of influence skills I teach in the book. And it's specifically with real world challenges. And for each module, there's 3 challenges. And this is like the class that I teach here, where the real world challenges focus on giving and getting and gratitude. And there's science behind the way they work and support each other to help you develop yourself to be more of that person that people want to say yes to. And you're building resilience and you're becoming more confident as you're asking. Penelope is asking, this is an interesting question, and I don't know the answer, but I'll share with listeners what this is. She's asking, how much do you find that your speech patterns today are still affected by your desire to or knowledge of influence? And Penelope, I don't know. There's nothing that I consciously do when I'm speaking to try to be influential. However, I have a deep background in both acting training and teaching of English as a foreign language, which doesn't come up very often. But one of the things in my acting background that helped me teach English as a foreign language is to try to enunciate clearly. So I don't know if I still do that. But another thing that's relevant for everyone on the call that I learned through my acting training, and I didn't know was helping people like me be more influential when we talk, is to speak from my natural low register. And it's not like, if you know what Elizabeth Holmes sounds like, she's like growly, this old man voice, because apparently she was told low voices are more influential and tried to speak really low. I can't even do it very well. But the truth is that the reason why low voices are perceived to be more influential is that when people speak in their natural low register, it's a marker of confidence, because you actually have to relax your lungs and your diaphragm to speak in your natural low register. And so people perceive you as being more confident, and it's easier and more pleasant to listen to your voice, versus if you're not comfortable and you're speaking in a constricted, screechy kind of voice, it's just harder to listen to. So it's something that I teach students to practice, and that'll probably be part of the Coursera course. And I do write about it in the book. A very, very easy way that you can practice doing this is just imagine, and you can do this, anyone on the call can do this right now if you feel like it, although, well, you can talk to yourself. If you just imagine a thread from your breastbone lifting up to the sky, and you just feel this just slight lift of your breastbone, this is the best way to open up your lungs. And it's different from if you think about straightening your back or putting your shoulders back, it actually can compress your lungs. But if you just lightly lift your breastbone and let your shoulders fall where they fall, it's a comfortable, easy way to help relax your voice when you speak. And while we're talking about voices, many people don't realize how important it is to hear each other's voices, not just read our words. But I encourage you, when there's someone that you want to connect with or someone that you want to influence, that you have a conversation with them where you hear each other's words if you don't already know each other, and if they're willing to spend that time. Don't take their time lightly. But research by Juliana Schroeder and Nick Epley and others of their colleagues has found that when people hear each other's voices, we like them better, we think that they're smarter, we're more likely to want to do what they're asking us for, including get interviewed for jobs, things like this. And we believe that they're smarter. So we like them better, and we find them smarter and more influential. And that's the gift that you give someone when you listen to their voice as well. Another key piece of research in this area on conversations is by Alison Wood Brooks and some of her colleagues at Harvard, finding that asking questions is really important, but it's really, really, really important to ask follow-up questions if you want people to like you. Now, let's see. We have a few more minutes.
Speaking of follow-up questions, Zoe, just really quickly.
Go ahead.
A couple of people have asked about your acting training, and if you had, a certain training that you did, and if you'd recommend that.
My recommendation for really everyone let's just say everyone, period, is, if this would be fun for you at all, to do some improv training. And the idea is, when you're training in improv, you're training to really, really listen to people. You're doing it in a way that's totally fun. And you're learning to let go of that gatekeeper that has you be self-conscious. So when I was talking about charisma and self-consciousness as being the opposite. Improv training is the fun way to strip away some of that self-consciousness. And what's cool is that it turns out actually everybody can be funny. And I learned this when I was at Mattel, and they funded improv training for us. And some of the least funny people. There was an engineer and there was an ops guy on my team who I didn't think of as being funny at all at work. They show up to improv class and they're some of the funniest people because they learned more quickly than the rest of us did to just let go of that gatekeeper. So you are naturally funny, and improv class is a great way to cultivate that. And what it also teaches you is this deep level of empathy for other people because of the philosophy of yes and, or accept and add. So it's not designed to teach tolerance and connection, but this is what it does brilliantly. And also, if anybody finds a great online improv class, I would love to do that with you. So please let me know.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more question. If you want to take a look in the Q&A.
Sure. I'll answer a question here from Nancy on the IKEA effect, which was something that our Jiwoong's and my advisor, Dan Ariely, and my other advisor, Mike Norton at Harvard studied, which confuses people sometimes when I talk about ease and say ease is the most important, most impactful driver of behavior. There's also simultaneously this idea that we value things that we put effort into. The way of separating this and thinking differently about and the IKEA effect is the idea that if you built the furniture yourself, even if it's really ugly and it's very low quality, you think it's awesome because you put all that time into it. We value things that are difficult when they confer some kind of status, even only in our mind, like this is this thing that I made, I'm so proud of myself. But we're not more likely to do them when they're harder. So the fact that IKEA furniture is difficult to build doesn't make us more likely to do it. And what IKEA does pretty well is makes it as easy as possible for us to build their furniture by giving us very clear diagrams. And now there's a whole cottage industry for people that will come and build your IKEA furniture. But I guess what I want to leave people with as we wrap up this wide-ranging conversation on influence and marketing is just this idea that influence is a science. It's not rocket science. You're built to do this. This is how human beings have evolved. This is how you survived when you were a baby. This is how humans have survived as a species and thrived across the planet, is through our ability to influence and persuade one another. The most important thing for those of us who are already substantially thriving enough in our lives that we can join each other on webinars like these is to figure out how and where and when do we want to leave our mark, our impact to the highest use of our influence that we can serve. And for me, in the work that I do and through this book that I've written, I'm using my influence to try to impact the climate crisis. And half of my proceeds for this book, half my profits, are going to organizations like 350.org who are working on solving the climate crisis so that we still have a place to live. You decide what your impact will be, but I hope that as you join me on the path of becoming influential, that you will find that influence and impact that really deeply is satisfying to you, even beyond the day-to-day work that we do. Thank you, Emily, and thank you, Jiwoong, and thank you, Jenny and Ravi, and everyone who's been part of organizing this series through YCCI. I've been a listener, I've been a host, and I'm very excited to now be a guest and to listen to the future sessions that we have. It's a real pleasure.
Yes, thank you, Zoe, so much, and thank you, Jiwoong. And we will also be having Zoe join us next week at our Yale Customer Insights Conference. And so there's only just a couple days left to register. So if you want to see Zoe again in person, come down to New Haven and join us for that as well. Thank you, everybody, and everybody have a great day.